Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. Our official sponsor, as always, is Running Aces Racetrack Casino and Hotel, and we are also sponsored by Learn Pro Poker and website AMP. This is episode 194, and today we have a chance to chat with Matt Hunt, which we're super excited about. But let's first introduce our panel. My name is Steve Fredlund. I am at Rec Poker Steve in our PokerStars home game, reminding you what David Hayano said: poker is not a game in which the meek inherit the earth.
I am Andrew Feist. I am dealer 412 in our PokerStars home game. Kind of a throwback to last week with Blake Bond. I need someone to teach me how to fold.
And I'm Chris Jones, 5x5 in the PokerStars home game, 5b5 on Twitter. And now that I've finally made my first royal flush, my next elusive poker dream is to capture the all impossible triple check raise.
Well, my name's Jim Reed. I'm Bluffsterini in the home games. And it's not just about improving your A game. If you can improve your B game and just learn to walk away when you're playing your C game, that's actually better than improving your A games. There's lots of ways to get better as a player.
And I'm John Somsky, Poker Geek MN everywhere else. And I just want to remind everyone to be very careful when drawing to an inside straight.
And I'm Rob Wash. I'm Ratman50 on Twitter and on the PokerStars home game. And as Tommy Angelo said, there's only two positions during a poker hand: last and not last.
Very good. Well, thanks, everybody. Those are the voices that you all know and love every week. And just a reminder that Rec Poker is way more than a podcast. We are a vibrant and encouraging poker learning community. We learn the game, we have a blast, we celebrate each other's victories, and we build relationships along the way. So if that sounds appealing to you, jump into the community. You can join for free at rec.poker. If you want more of the content, there are some premium options, and you can use the code RECPOKER to get $10 off your first payment. So do that. So with all of that, let's bring in Matt Hunt. Matt is a professional poker player and coach from the UK, currently living in Las Vegas, where it's nice and cool. He has a bachelor's degree in French and a master's degree in transnational studies, both from the University of Southampton in the UK. As a poker coach, he specializes in MTT math and ICM concepts, short stack play, exploration of the no-limit game tree through GTO solver research, and the cognitive role of language in poker decision-making. That's a lot of things to specialize in. He also serves as a mental game and language analyst for the Poker Detox coaching and staking program, and has been a member of the MTT coaching roster at Tournament Poker Edge since 2013. So with that, welcome, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I have to update that resume. I don't know where you got that from, but there's a couple of small things I have to update on there. But I'll
go ahead.
I'll deal with those some other time.
That is from the Solve for Why. I should have run it past you. It's from your Solve for Why site.
Then I need to let Berkey know that needs to be updated. I don't know why the Solve for Why resume for me has me listed as being on the roster for another coaching site since 2013.
I almost asked that. I'm like, why would they put that out there?
I haven't been with Tournament Poker Edge since I've been with Solve for Why, but I don't know. I don't know why that says that.
Well, I think, well, first of all, we all know that Berkey's not very smart, so we've kind of got that deal already. So we'll do quality control on behalf of Matt Berkey. I'll actually let him know about that. How's that? But anyway,
sure.
So anything else from the imposter resume that we should let people know about?
No, most of that was accurate. Although I'm not working so much with Poker Detox anymore either. But those are all things that I have done at some point in the last few years. I've jumped around a lot.
And you are from the UK, is that correct?
I am. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, my accent's washing out a little bit.
This is Matthew Hunt. Are we correct? We actually have Matthew Hunt too.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do have the right guy. Yeah, my accent's washing out a little bit. I've been here in the US for about almost 3.5 years now. So I'm kind of I don't know. When I go to the UK or when I speak to people from the UK, they say I sound American. When I come back here, they say I sound British. So I don't know where I am right now.
Man without a country. Well, we're glad that you're on the show. I guess the only piece we were able to validate before the show started was that you're in Las Vegas right now.
That's true. Yes.
Enjoying not being in the heat.
Yeah, I'm staying indoors pretty much even more than most people are right now. So yeah, it's hot. It's very hot. It's the desert, and it's not exactly my natural environment being from the UK. So it's rough when you don't have 50 MTTs to play in the summer during the World Series. So it's been an odd couple months, but I'm surviving, and we're only about a month or so away from it starting to cool down in Vegas. So I should be pretty happy once that happens.
So what was your sort of mix between live and online tournaments before all of this?
Before all of this, well, before I moved to the US, I was almost exclusively online. I played a little bits live, like when I came to Vegas in the summers and at other times, just a couple of times here and there, but I was mostly online. But then when I settled down here in Vegas, I kind of started splitting. Maybe there were times where it was like during the World Series, it would just be like 90% live. You just grind live and then play online in the evenings or something if you bust. But then there's been other times where it's been maybe 3/4 online and a little bit live. But then there's also been, a couple of 3-month stretches where I might just really feel like going and playing live a bunch, So it tends to switch around. But obviously last few months been pretty much online only.
But making that transition obviously was not difficult because of your background playing online.
Yeah. I think I was quite lucky in having had enough experience online that I was just comfortable hopping back into it, and it kind of felt like 5 years ago grinding on PokerStars or wherever else.
Well, as a fully emerged graybeard, I was disturbed by this one question that I have for you, which was you started out playing poker in college home games in 2009.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true, yeah.
2009 in college. Wait a second, Rob, we got to do something about this. But yeah, talk about how you got into poker in the first place.
Sure, yeah. Well, 2009 was towards the end of my time in college. I was doing a 4-year degree, and in the last year of it, some friends and I just basically set up a regular Friday night poker game. I think the first time we did it was like New Year's Day 2009 or something like that. And by the time like 3 months had gone by, it wasn't just a regular Friday night game anymore. It was like 4 nights a week. We were just doing this, And then what happened was because of the way it worked out with the scheduling of how my college, like my 4-year plan or my 4-year degree worked out compared to other people that I knew, a lot of the guys that were in that home game basically graduated and just moved away. So we didn't really have enough people to play that home game anymore after a certain point. So I still wanted to play some poker, so I started playing online. And before long, I was starting to think, oh man, I'm actually getting kind of okay at this, and I really enjoy it, and maybe I could actually do this for a living one day. So that's kind of how it happened.
So the degrees were for French and transnational studies.
Yeah,
but there wasn't so much of a pull there that playing poker wasn't too difficult of a choice.
It wasn't. I mean, honestly, if I could go back and make choices again, I would either do a different degree or I would not go to college at all. Because I think that I really value the experiences that I had during my college years. I met a lot of great people. I had the opportunity to live and work abroad. I learned to speak another language, which is an experience that I think is, it's transformative for anyone who does that. But at the same time, I came out of college thinking, what the hell am I going to do with this degree? Because particularly in the UK, I mean, we're not in the EU anymore for whatever good that might apparently do us. But back at the time when I graduated college, I was coming out of college with a degree in French, being able to speak 2 languages. But a company that might be looking to hire at that point could go and hire a guy from the Netherlands who speaks 4 languages fluently, or a guy from, somewhere else that speaks 3 languages, or, 3 fluent and 2 partially. And it's like me just being, not bilingual, but fluent in another language wasn't really enough to actually give me any kind of competitive edge in the job market. So that was kind of how I ended up studying for another year, really. I got to a point where I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this degree. So I decided to do my master's. I stuck around for another year, and that was the year in which I started kind of partially paying the bills through poker. And that was the point where I was like, well, I could try to make these humanities degrees into something professional, or I could just play poker, which would probably be more fun and I'd probably make more money. So let's do that. That's basically how it happened.
So transnational studies, give us a little bit of a background in that.
Well, at the time when I did that, it was my university was the only one in the UK that was offering that course, and it was only the second year that they had run it. So right after I graduated, excuse me, I was able to say I'm one of only like 20 people on the planet that has this degree. But now it's growing quite a bit as a field, and essentially what it is it's like part sociology, part linguistics. It's the study of migration. Migration, language, social identity, nationalism, things like that. A lot of different concepts kind of rolled up into one umbrella, but it's the transnational element is to do with the idea of movement across countries, you know. And as someone who had spent time abroad as part of my first degree, and someone who'd always had an interest in living in a lot of different places and spending time around the world, I gravitated towards that. It was really interesting. But ultimately, I came out of that kind of the same way I came out of my undergrad, thinking like, this is great. And it was really interesting, but like, what the hell am I going to do with this? You know? And that's how poker happened, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm super curious. I mean, I could talk, these guys know, like, I could talk for hours about anything. I'm so curious, but like, I'm so interested, like, is there anything that kind of sticks with you from before we transition into poker, that sticks with you from those studies that you're like, okay, this is helping me kind of understand the world today, or, you know, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's politics or just anything. Is there anything that kind of comes out of there where you're like, okay, I have some of these insights that would actually be helpful for people to know that maybe most of the population doesn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the biggest thing, or if someone were to ask me, what's the one thing you want to transmit to people? It's the idea that language is a framework that we created for a practical purpose. Language is a framework that we created to allow us to communicate a concept to somebody else. So something's in our head and we want to try to get it into somebody else's head in a way that we can, you know, mutually understand what it is. And when you understand that that's how it works, you understand that every concept that we talk about, every single word in every single language that's ever been created existed purely as a means to make that happen. And that these words can then these meanings can change over time, because the concepts that are in everybody's minds when they say these words or when they hear these words, they change. And when you start to understand that language changes over time, language usage changes over time, and also that language can be used to do a number of different things. It can be used to communicate a concept more effectively and make teaching better. It can be used to manipulate people into doing things that they shouldn't be doing. It can be used in any number of different ways. But once you see that language itself is a tool that humans developed, or it's a means to an end of communicating a concept, it kind of opens doorways for you to be able to say, okay, well, what other ways do I have that can communicate concepts? I can communicate through visual means. I can communicate through any kinds of other forms that are accessible to me. And language is just one of those things that I can use in conjunction with other things to get a message across, or to relate to people, to build relationships, to for any number of different reasons. And I think that there's a strong link between people who have a high level of emotional intelligence and people who have a high level of understanding of how to use language effectively. And I think that is one of the things that I got out of spending 4 or 5 years studying this stuff in college. Is I met a lot of people who had really high levels of emotional intelligence and really were good people to be around, because you could really have a conversation with them that felt meaningful. And I think that there was a certain small demographic of people that studies languages in college that maybe doesn't, it's not easy to define the kind of stereotype of who that might be. You know, people have a stereotype of engineers or, computer science guys or whatever. And there's no real stereotype for linguists, but the specific category of people that I met studying, great people. And like I say, I think that understanding language had a big impact on me as a person and just the way I perceive the world around me.
Man, I wanted to jump in there and kind of ask a little bit,
Sure.
follow up on that. as you're talking about language as this way to like convey ideas, and like fundamentally that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
It's both interesting to me that you have sort of all this humanities background, very little. I mean, maybe in other parts of your study you were studying mathematical concepts and
Mhm.
sort of like those kinds of things. But one of the things that I have just valued so much about some of your work, coaching in Solve for Why, and I feel like you have helped me understand some of the tougher mathematical concepts in poker really well. And it's really surprising to me that you don't have that sort of math background. So I'm wondering if you can talk about, was it that sort of background in linguistics that's helped you sort of convey some of those concepts, and how did you sort of teach yourself about some of these tougher, some of the ICM theory kind of like tough concepts in poker? How did you build up a knowledge base around all those topics?
Sure. I first of all, I'm grateful that you like my work. That's awesome. Thank you. But I think, there's a complete contrast between the way I think I'm perceived as a coach, or the specialization that I tend to take as a coach, versus the background that I have. But I think that it's the background that I have that allows me to actually be effective at doing what I do as a coach. Because for the most part, what I focus on is recognizing that these concepts that are mathematical in nature are very difficult for someone to like pass out and really understand on a deep level. Because humans aren't built for math, we're not good at math generally. And so the best way that we can understand these is if we can put them in some kind of a framing that, that allows us to express it in a fairly simple way that makes it intelligible in terms that aren't mathematical. So whether that's graphically or whether it's in terms of words, you could show somebody the numbers that prove a correlation between two things, or you can tell them when X goes up, Y goes down, or something like that. And immediately, whether it's through a visual expression of something going up and something going down, or whether it's through just the phrase that you use, the words that you use, people tend to understand things more easily that way. And so I think that in terms of my own understanding of the concepts, I don't think my background helped me at all. It was probably a hindrance, because it took me a while to learn a lot of this stuff myself. But I think in communicating it to other people, I think it was not only the fact that I understood that communication is about using the right language and framing things in the right terms, but also just the fact that I had some teaching experience as well. And I had done this, I've been in a classroom teaching during my year abroad. I taught in a college or in a school in France. And, I've been in a classroom in front of 20 French teenagers where they don't speak English. My French was good at that point, but not like fantastic. And I'd been told, like, don't let them know that you actually speak French. The teachers that I was working with were like, they need to practice their English, so you should just speak English with them. But then I'm up in front of the classroom and I have to try to communicate certain things. I'm not supposed to use one language, but I kind of can. But then if I do, there's a whole host of other considerations. And, that kind of weird situation that you're never put in usually, once you've done something like that, trying to figure out how to teach somebody what range they should 3-bet in a certain spot, it's kind of easy, after a while.
I love that question, Chris. That is just a phenomenal question. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Matt, anyway, was your ability to teach, because it really does feel like you're a gifted teacher. We're not just saying that because you're on the show. And I'm curious, it seems to me it's so obvious that you spend so much time preparing your presentations in a way that people can understand some of the things that you talked about, whether it's visually or whatever. And I'm curious if that's actually true, or if because of your background or your just ability to teach, if that's just sort of a natural, you just kind of get it, you hear something, you figure it out, and then you're just able to communicate it in a really relevant way, or if you actually do spend the time that I'm assuming you spend really getting it to the point where people can understand it clearly.
I think it's a bit of both. I think my ability to, the fact that I'm quite good at just delivering something, like speaking, that just comes from experience of being in a classroom. And I've also, I'm kind of cheating in a way as well, because I did some volunteer work that involved public speaking training and things like that. So I've had training in that area, and that's why I can kind of communicate in terms of how I actually talk. But the work that goes into content in terms of slides and doing solves and things like that, that's a lot of work. I for sure put a lot of work in there. And I think that there might be some other people who maybe don't do as much of the front end, but then they'll rehearse a coaching session or they'll plan a session out in great detail. I'm not necessarily one for that so much, but if you give me a set of slides that like with this information on it, or if I put together a set of slides, then I can deliver a session pretty easily off those slides, just kind of based on experience and based on I think a sensitivity to kind of the flow of how a class is going and things like that. So it's a little bit of both, I guess.
Well, it sounds great. So Chris Jones puts together all of our monthly seminars and our other content, and he's a genius. But he puts more time in that people don't realize how much time he puts in. But I think maybe Chris for September, we just give Matt the slides and just have him deliver it. I mean, it seems like a pretty easy.
That sounds great. It would be 10,000 times better, I'm sure.
No.
So that would be awesome.
We'll miss out on the conversation though in the process. But related to that, I'm curious if you have any sort of a teaching that you're just like ultra proud of. And I don't like to put people in these spots where this false humility thing, whatever, but like, one of the teachings, I'll set this up a little bit while you think about that, because one of the teachings that you have, I continue to go back to, and I don't consume as much content as people probably think I do. But there's a few of these teachings that different people have had that I'm just like, I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to your teaching on the stages of MTT tournaments. Those 6 stages and the whole volatility, ICM, and future skill edge, what should be focused on, or what should be prioritized, or what should be emphasized, or what should you pay attention to at each stage. And I just found that transforms people when I'm able to start communicating some of those principles that you taught there. So I'm addicted to that teaching, but I'm curious if you have, any other ones that you're just like, this one I'm just super proud of.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that one, because that's the one for me that I think that was the first time I really felt like I was breaking new ground in terms of content. Like, rather than just conveying a concept, I was inventing a concept or inventing a mental model for how to look at something. I think certainly makes that piece of content, I think, one of the ones that I was very pleased with how it came out. On top of that, I think that I want to mention also the work that we do at SoftY in the academy, the in-person work that we do, the classroom work that we do. I was a big part of developing our first tournament academy that we did. I think we did that back in 2018, and we've done a few of them since then. Obviously, we haven't done one this year because of COVID, but I'm really proud of that as well, because I think we put together a 3-day experience that I think does incorporate a lot of those ideas from that video series. And I think we've had, I'm trying to think of exactly how much it's been, but I would say the scores or the caches that we've had from attendees at our MTT Academy is probably pushing something like 300K now since that first MTT Academy. We had one player come to the MTT Academy and then make a 92K score a week later. We've had a lot of good outcomes, and I'm really proud of everything that we do at the Academy too. So I definitely want to mention that.
Awesome. I know Andrew has a question, but I just noticed in the chat I'm getting ripped on here because John Somsky said, who had 11 minutes until Steve mentioned tournament stages? And they were betting the over-under on how long till I mentioned that. So wow. they know I love that, but great stuff. Andrew?
Well, I appreciate the love, guys. I like that you guys are as into my content as that.
We're huge fans.
If he didn't bring it up, I was just about to, because I was just going to say, when you were talking about your language, having a background in language and the concepts from your head into mine, essentially, it doesn't get any better than the anatomy of an MTT. That was phenomenal work. Love it.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad.
Going kind of a little bit different, you've been with the mental health and mental game of everything. You've been posting a lot of your stuff on Twitter, and as far as community aspect, that's what we're all about. And so my question, I guess, would be is what made your decision to start sharing your mental health and stuff on with Twitter and trying to, bring the community aspect into it, and what made your decision on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately, I don't think there was a specific time where I said to myself, like, I'm going to start sharing more of myself. I think it's more just it might be a byproduct of the last few months, the way that we've all been kind of isolated to a certain degree, and we've all been kind of wanting a bit more of a connection with the people around us. And for better or worse, sometimes Twitter is one of the few ways we have available to get a connection with people very rapidly like that. It might have been just that I was kind of feeling like I wanted to be more authentic and start to kind of communicate to people what my experience had been like in recent weeks or recent months. It's also, I think, part of me wanting to make sure that I'm not limiting myself in terms of the ways in which I express myself publicly, because I think that it's easy on Twitter to just get wrapped up in like, you kind of tweet about, I don't know, I'll tweet about something poker related or some poker feud that's going on, or, you tweet about something to do with politics, or I tweet my thoughts about some, soccer game that I just watched or something like that. And then I guess at a certain point, I just kind of looked and said, well, I have people that are following me. And if I can do something that I think is going to resonate with people, then, I feel like I have some kind of a responsibility to like, hopefully do something that can make people feel better, or can make people feel like there's some element of my experience that they can relate to, and I think that, yeah, to be honest, I think that if COVID hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have come to this point of feeling like I needed that, I needed to like be connecting out there with people. So it may just be a byproduct of that, but I'm glad I started it, because I've certainly gotten a lot of positive response, and I certainly don't plan to stop anytime soon. So it's been certainly, I think, a good decision.
No, yeah, and just kind of a follow-up with that, I applaud you for doing that, because that would be something that I can imagine would be very tough. But yeah, just the ability for you to kind of reach out and let other people know that they're not the only one going through tough stuff. I applaud you on that, for that.
Thank you. There. I appreciate it. I'm glad people are paying some kind of attention, because I guess that it's easy when you put something out there to think that everyone might just ignore it, and it's been really gratifying to me to get some messages of support and messages of like, hey, you don't really know me, but if you need to talk to somebody, feel free. Like all kinds of different messages I've gotten from people, and a lot of them people I don't know at all. So it's really great to have gotten that kind of response. So yeah, I hope people are benefiting in some way from it.
John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, kind of on a different tack. I was just curious, given that you're an online tournament specialist, how does someone that is an online tournament specialist who is natively part of the UK and can play online poker very easily from there decide to move to the United States, which is one of the worst places to play online poker?
It is. It probably won't surprise you to hear that I moved for love rather than for money or for my career. My wife is American. We met online actually in 2014, and we lived together in the UK for a bit. We traveled around from country to country for a couple of years. We spent some time around Europe. We spent some time in Mexico. We spent time here, Canada, and eventually we reached a point where traveling was exhausting, and we needed to make a decision about whether to apply for a visa for her to come to the UK or for me to come to the US. And, outside of just the logistics of it, would have been way harder to get her into the UK than it would have been to get me into here. But outside of that, like we both kind of agreed that Vegas would be a good place to settle. There's a lot of poker. She used to come here as a kid with her family, so she likes it here. She's from California originally, so we're close to home for her. There's just a lot of benefits for us being here. And yeah, it sucked to leave online poker behind, or to leave, the major sites behind. But there's obviously still a ton of poker here, and I would have been coming here every summer anyway for the World Series. So it really isn't too much of a trade-off for me to live here. And I'm grateful that I get to build a life here with my wife, and I get to, I guess, a year or so from now, I will be able to apply for citizenship, which is exciting.
Excellent. That actually makes a lot more sense than coming here for poker.
Yes. Yeah. If I was going somewhere for poker, I don't know where I'd go, but I'd go to some country that, can still play on PokerStars, but is really cheap. So I don't know, Bulgaria or somewhere, but I would never really think of that, to be honest, ever since I met my wife. So we'll stay in the US for now.
I've heard Costa Rica is popular for that.
It's popular for poker players, yeah, but the weather might be a little too hot for me. I might have to stay in Europe.
Yep, I'm much more comfortable with cold. I'd rather put a sweater on than try and find a fan or a basin of ice water. Right. I had a question following up because just earlier you were talking about how this global pandemic kind of changed the way that you were interacting with people, and we really noticed that at Rec Poker. We were still kind of putting our home games together, and we were kind of figuring out the best way to get members to communicate and engage with each other. And one thing that we noticed right away was that people wanted to engage, to be dealing with other people, that there was a void there. And that was when we started actually doing our home games every night, as opposed to just twice a month. And that was hugely popular. And that's cool. The home games have been fantastic. Have you noticed, especially as a teacher, we really pride ourselves on kind of learning in community, sharing our lessons, sharing our pain, and learning from it together. Sure. Have you noticed a difference in the way that people are learning, or that people are kind of adapting in their learning process to this new reality as well?
To a degree, I think. What I've kind of noticed is I think there's people are kind of in two categories. I think there's certain people that I come into contact with through Solve4Why who because they can't play much poker right now, they're just diving into learning. They're just like, when the live games come back, I'm just going to be a better player. Right. And there's another category of people who are like, maybe this is probably the category of people whose lives have been maybe impacted a bit more by the pandemic, and maybe they have work stuff to sort out or something like that. But there's another category of people who are like, I'm just going to leave poker alone for like 6 months because I can't think about it right now. I have too much on my mind. And I totally get that as well. So I think there's kind of been a couple of different schools of thought, I suppose, in that regard. But I think a lot of guys in the Solve4Why and women, of course, in the Solve4Why community, I think have been very active in our Slack group and things like that. So there's been a lot of conversations going on. There's been a lot of a lot of people kind of playing online and experimenting with online for the first time, sometimes in certain cases. So I think there's a growth in the level of interest that, like, some people who were kind of maybe looking for something to fill the void that COVID created, some people have chosen poker. And obviously you guys are doing a great job providing a platform for that kind of community aspect with nightly home games. That's great. But I think also some people have, like, maybe the people that have already maybe gotten a certain community sense from elsewhere have kind of like pulled back a little bit. I think I've sensed, I've had some of my own students say, like, just put me on hold for like 4 months or whatever, and I totally get it. So it's situational, I suppose, for each person.
Yeah, and everyone has their own way of keeping a hand in it. Like, I'm sure people are still listening to podcasts and, watching videos and that kind of stuff, keeping fresh. I can't turn down a segue like that, though. A lot of our members are also used to playing live, and now they're playing online for the first time. Do you have any tips or ways that you might adjust your play if you're used to playing live and now you're trying to go get online and crush it online?
It's an interesting question, because I think there's so many elements to it that it's hard to transmit it in a short space of time. But I think if I could pinpoint one thing, it would probably be that I find that people who play live more than online tend to get very into trying to, like, guess their opponent's exact thought process, to, like, figure out exactly what this guy is thinking right now, because you're opposite the guy and you can kind of get a bit of a vibe from them of what they might be thinking. But when you try to do that online, the problem is there's a billion different things that could be actually going on behind the screen that might actually lead this person to do a certain thing. And your intuition as to why they're doing a certain thing. Like, oh, this guy's just trying to mess with me. Like, he's just rebetting me because he thinks, screw this guy, you know, like that intuition is so much more likely to let you down online than it is live. You guys are all like pointing each other and raising hands.
I'm raising my hand. Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, I think that desire to try to guess what the other guy is thinking, you kind of have to like put that aside when you're playing online and just really focus on like the fundamentals and the strategic aspects of the spot, more so than trying to mess with a specific player or target a specific guy that you think is a fish or something like that, because you just don't have a lot of info.
So I want to transition a little bit here to talk a little bit more about the mental health side of things.
Sure.
But I'm curious, you know, I love this question about, you know, is poker still fun for you? Like, so, you know, you've been doing this for a long time. You're still very young, but you've been doing it for a long time. And now you've built a career out of it. So you're playing, you're learning, you're teaching, you're doing all sorts of things. Is it still fun, or is it sort of like, well, no, this is the course I took. This is my job. This is the business I'm in. Talk a little bit about that.
I think it varies, honestly. I think it's kind of like a lot of things in that once you, if you're really passionate about something and then you start to kind of see behind the curtain in a way, like once you see the things that go into making it happen and you see the inner workings of the industry, there are certain aspects of it which aren't as fun or as appealing as they used to be. But there's also certain aspects of it that really connect on a deep level with why you got into it in the first place. And those are the parts that will never not be fun. You know, so for me, walking into the Rio to play day one of the main event will never not be fun. I will do that every time I can for the rest of my life, because that will never not be fun for me. And it's the same for any big tournament. But at the same time, sitting down to play online and play a $50 rebuy might not be anywhere near as interesting for me now as it was before. And it's nothing to do with the amount of money that might be at stake, because I don't have substantially more money now than I did at any earlier period of my career. It's not that I've moved up in stakes and it's less exciting for me because there's less money at stake. It's simply because it just feels more familiar. And it's hard for something to feel familiar and exciting at the same time. And so I think it's, when it comes down to the fun parts, it's either the stuff that you don't get to do very often, like big tournaments, big events, you know, big final tables, or it's the stuff that's new. So like if I decide to go play a game I haven't played before, like if I sit down and play some PLO or some triple draw or something like that, and I'm experimenting and I'm just kind of playing around with it instead of just like, okay, this is my day job, I'm just going to go and play my best in this tournament and see how it goes, you know? So there's still fun parts and there's familiar parts, but I suppose that's probably the same with everything.
I love that. I mean, you talk about that. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of nonprofit work, and it's kind of that thing too. Like, it's super exciting. It's fun to get into. Then you turn back the curtain and you're like, you know, there's some stuff that's not as exciting. So maybe that's a segue. Just quick mention the nonprofit work that you are involved with, if you want to give anything a plug or talk a little bit about that.
Truthfully, it's not something that I'm involved with now. It was more in the past. So basically in my latter years in college, I volunteered with an organization called ISEC, which it's the world's largest purely student-run organization. And what it does is it's an organization focused on leadership development and training for young people in all kinds of areas, professional training and skills training, things like that. And they do that through running an international exchange program. So you join up, you're a student, and you actually participate in running this exchange program, which provides internships and teaching positions and things like that for students who are looking to go to another country and experience another culture, things like that. And they, I think, I'm not sure what their numbers are like by now, but by the time I left the organization in 2011, they were doing something in the region of like 120,000 exchanges worldwide every year. And we had like 80,000 members or something. I forget what exactly the numbers were, but I volunteered in the UK primarily. And they have elections every year for, you know, president and vice president of something of the organization, where you get to go and work full time in London for a year. I ran for president in the UK, didn't get it. Ran for vice president in the UK, didn't get it. And then ended up being one of the vice presidents working in Ireland. So I moved to Dublin for about 8-9 months, working over there to help kind of reestablish the organization, because it had kind of like the Irish arm had sort of fallen off a little bit, and they needed the team of people to go in and like build it back up. So I did a lot of great work with them. They gave me a lot of great training and experiences. I was able to go on my own exchange experience where I went and what did I do? I taught English for 2 months in a school in Turkey. And that was great. I loved the time I spent over there. So I had a lot of great opportunities as a product of the time I spent with them. But I suppose by the time I'd finished my role in Ireland working with them, that was the point where poker was really like calling to me a little bit. You know, that was where I was like, man, I really kind of want to do this poker thing. And so at that point I wasn't a student anymore anyway, so I wasn't eligible to be involved anymore, and it just kind of naturally came to a close. But that was the work that I was doing in the past.
Yeah, and as a language specialist, I would think that that's extremely interesting to go to different cultures. But I think for anybody, I mean, the fact that you're giving anybody cultural experiences, I think those are critical for our life and understanding the world. So hats off to the work that you did there. I'll turn it over to Chris. You had a question?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the, you were talking about, the kind of the difference between a $50 online tournament and the main event, and like that.
Sure.
There's some sort of external factors that are kind of like driving that, like there's this excitement and there's this atmosphere and all those kind of things in place. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of those internal drivers and kind of like the learning aspect of the game. Mm-hmm. You're somebody who I think we all know and respect your sort of knowledge of solvers and sort of like, the intricacies of the game. And you can at least convey that a lot to us in terms of like what that means. But I'm curious about what still challenges you or surprises you about the game, if anything, and is it just you approach a poker table and there really is rarely a spot that you kind of are, well, I'm gonna have to go back to the lab after this is over because I don't know what the heck was going on there, or is it?
I think that when I started out, I was in the camp of players who looks at poker more as a puzzle to try to figure out, like a puzzle to solve or a puzzle to piece together. I wasn't in the camp of like super competitive, I want to beat the other guy kind of players. I was very much in trying to be like academic about it and trying to learn about the game and the puzzle, the pieces and how they fit together. But I think as time has gone by, I've kind of gotten to a point where I see it now just as a medium for learning more about people. I kind of I find that the game teaches me things. The game, kind of gives me insights into how people operate that I probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. So I would in terms of like, are there spots where I still find myself in situations where I look at it and I'm like, oh, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do here. Yeah. I mean, those do come up, but it's much less frequent because the more you study, the more you start to realize that situations really do fall into categories, and you can kind of equate one as being very similar to another in a lot of cases. But really what surprises me now is people and how they act and how they behave, and the times where you see someone who you think is behaving a certain way, and then they do something you completely don't expect, and you have to try to figure out, where did that come from? Like, why did this guy decide to randomly punt off his stack at this particular time? What emotional impulse was it that made him do this? Or, some other aspect related to, let's say, why do people from one country tend to play differently to people from another country? That's always been a pet sort of thing of mine that I really do believe is true. Like, I really do believe you could statistically prove that people from certain countries play more in a certain way than people from other countries. You can't gather data on it because you can't gather a hand history that includes the locations of the players. No site includes that. But if the data gathering techniques existed, I absolutely believe you could prove, let's say, that Brazilians play more hands. That's for sure true. Like, the VPIP of the average Brazilian player is higher than the VPIP of the average American player. There's no debating that. There's a lot of things that the game continues to teach me. And if I ever feel like the game has stopped teaching me, then maybe I would end up leaving it behind. But I just don't see how that could ever happen, because it's just, you're always dealing with people. And for as long as you're always dealing with people, you're still going to keep learning things.
And just like, how do you think the science of language and the way language shapes our minds affects that, geographical, the differences there? Like, because that it can't just be that they're all watching the same pros on TV. I think. I mean, maybe it can.
I know. I think it affects it a lot. I would hypothesize that it's not just a language element, but a cultural element, in that in certain cultures, there's a different significance attached to the idea of risk and gambling and things like that. So, certain cultures might prize a quality like being very combative or not backing down, facing aggression, more so than other cultures. I'm not sure if I should say which cultures I have in mind. I probably shouldn't. But I have specific, the VPIP of Brazilians thing, like that's a very simple one. But I have my own ideas, but in a lot of cases based on people I've actually spoken to from these countries that have told me about their culture and have told me, like, yes, in this country, it's much less socially acceptable to be this way, or it's like you're perceived to be weak if you act in this way, or something like that. Like that, there are very specific things that I can attribute, and I can say this cultural tendency that this guy told me about 8 years ago when I was drinking in a bar in Russia with him, this actually relates to poker, and that's a real thing. Like I spent a few weeks in Russia, and I drank with people who told me things about Russian culture that, in particular, I notice those things at the poker table now. Like if I see a Russian flag next to someone, I'm going to be like, all right, this guy probably behaves a certain way. Because I can remember my friend Nikolai and my friend Sergey, who told me all these things about how Russians act and how Russian culture works. And I think it's always funny to me and fascinating the way that poker consistently interacts with the experiences I've had in volunteering and language study and all these other areas that you would think were completely unconnected. It constantly surprises me in that way, for sure.
I'd like to go back to what you were talking about. When you first started, you looked at it as a puzzle.
Sure.
So this was 2009, right?
2009 through 2011 or so. Yeah, that was like the first 2 years when I took up the game, and I hadn't decided that I wanted to do it for a living yet. So as a puzzle, what resources did you use to expand your knowledge and to gain knowledge? Was it reading in forums? Was it interacting with your home game Bobos, or what was it? At the very, very beginning, it was that a friend of mine that I lived with, who was my roommate, who used to play in this game, he and I would, it was like a 40-minute walk back from my friend's house who hosted this game. And he and I used to walk back home after the home game every time and talk about all the hands we'd played. And that was my first experience of talking about strategy. And neither of us knew what the hell we were doing. Absolutely. Neither of us had read a poker book. Neither of us had read a forum. We didn't have a clue, but we would talk about poker. And I found it really interesting to talk about strategy. And it went from there to one of us found 2 + 2. So now suddenly we're reading 2 + 2. We're going back through old posts on 2 + 2 about strategy to find things that people posted in 2006 that were supposedly really important strategy ideas. And then it got to reading books, and then it got to training sites. And, come 2012, I was subscribed to every training site. And I was probably spending $100 a month on just every single training site. And then, one of them hired me in 2013. And then it came to the point where making training content was my main source of learning. I got to the point where I wanted to make content about a certain thing. So I forced myself, I need to know this thing really, really well. And the best way to do that was to use software, to use whatever tools I had that could actually prove a certain concept that I was trying to explain to somebody, instead of just having me hypothesize and say, I like to 3-bet in this spot, so you should do that too. I never wanted to be that guy who said, play like me. I just wanted to say, play like this because this is right. And that's why I started using software.
Oh, it's so good. Well, this is a 2-part deal that we're gonna do with Matt. So we're gonna
Sure.
wrap up the first episode. I guess my final comment on this, and I don't know what you think of these people. I have no idea if you like them or disagree or not, but I would like pay big money to see to listen in on a conversation between you and Fedor Holtz and Maria Konnikova. Like if the three of you could just get in a room and talk, like I would pay big money for that. So
that's a huge compliment you just paid me. I very much appreciate that. Fedor is probably one of the smartest guys in poker. Maria is probably one of the smartest people in poker. So yeah, I appreciate that very much.
Well, there's your $1 million idea. Get you 3 in a room, record it, and make a whole bunch of money. But
hey, if I had a way to get myself in a room with those two, I'd already be doing it.
Oh, let's do that. Okay.
They have a much higher profile than I do.
Rec Poker
You just took on a charge. All right, we just took on a charge. We're going to try to make that happen because, oh my gosh. But no, I love how you think. I love to. It's poker, but it's bigger than poker. And that's what I love about all three of you. It's poker, and it's not just what can you give to the game, what can you take out of the game, but what can you take out of life? What are the insights you're extracting? And then sharing them with the world. Like this is a huge value to the world. So we're going to end the first one there with Matt. But as we end, Matt, why don't you let people know how they can get a hold of you if they're listening going, all right, I need to connect with this guy. What's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is on Twitter. My Twitter handle right now is Mental Health Gaming. So it's MNTAL and HLTH. So I didn't have space for the whole thing. And then the word gaming at the end. That relates to my new Twitch project, which we'll possibly going to talk about in part 2. I don't know. But yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me right now. Obviously, you can go through Solve4Why as well. I'm a member of the coaching roster there, and would obviously be reachable if you were to contact our Twitter people. I think we have email addresses and things that people can reach out to if you guys are interested in signing up or in coming to the academy when we get up and running again, all sorts of things like that. So yeah, Twitter or email is probably the best way to go.
All right. Well, Matt Hunt, thank you so much. And we're going to chat with you part 2 for next week, but thank you so much. Fantastic stuff.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So we're wrapping up episode 1 here. We covered a lot of ground there. I know in the second episode, we're going to get into more of the mental health stuff, but part 1, we talked a lot about the Solve4Why stuff and his community and learning styles and the nonprofit and challenges in his game and all of those kinds of things. What stood out from that first part?
Well, I love the way he talks about language and how it shapes the way you think. I've always felt that language study is just another branch of philosophy, honestly. It's just studying the way people's brains work and the way that we communicate ideas. And the way that we communicate ideas is the way that we think about things. And so it's just another insight into the way that our minds work. So I can see how that would correlate to an interest in poker and exploiting opponents and trying to put them in boxes and understand their assumptions. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it was perfect. And yeah, the language into the teaching too, because I think that's part of the reason that some of his teachings, and I know Chris covered this too, but that some of his programs and some of his, stuff with the Solve4Why are so good is because he understands how people communicate and how he understands how to get his idea, as he put it, into somebody else's head very easily, or not easily, but very well, I should say.
Yeah.
I just wish he wasn't as politically correct, because when he was talking about how different cultures would handle themselves in a poker environment, how the Russians, the Brazilians, I think he had more to say there, or he realizes more than he actually said there. So I was kind of, he's very PC.
He doesn't want to give away his secrets, right? Like, I mean, he can probably look at all those like tags on people in an online game and be like, oh, I know how to play you.
Yep. Yeah. He's saving it for a book maybe someday.
Right.
There you go.
Well, good stuff. Anything else reflecting on that first part, guys? Yeah, good. I thought it was phenomenal. Obviously, phenomenal stuff. So as we kind of move into here, just a lot of things going on. You guys, we're sort of scaling back the round robin part of it, primarily because we wanted you to go to the website. There's so much stuff, and we can't possibly talk about it all. We just can't. Like there's so much going on right now. So go to the website, sign up for Twerp. We're gonna grab some of the highlights on some of the things that have happened recently. That's probably the best we can do. But if you want to know what's coming up, just go there. But I wanted to give like a high level when stuff is happening, just to make sure that you are aware of all the stuff going on, because you might not be aware of it. You might think, yeah, they got a couple things. No, we got a ton going on. So Monday nights, we record the podcast, we record the seminars, and if you're a paid member at Rec.Poker, you can join in on those. You can actually, these conversations like we just had tonight, you can be sitting there, you can be chatting with us, asking questions, all of that kind of stuff. So you can participate in the recordings on Monday nights. Tuesday nights, you play the home game, you can hang out on Zoom with us. We call it OPA, online play and hang. So you play the home game, you join the Zoom. Anybody can do that. If you're playing the home game, come in on Zoom, open to the public. The event is out there on Rec.Poker. Wednesday nights are kind of a big Rec Poker night. We alternate the book study and the learning with partners and a monthly strat chat. All that kind of stuff happens on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, there's one of those things going on. That's when we also play our monthly No Limit Hold'em and our mixed tournaments. We also have a monthly OPA, the online play and hang. We do that once a month for premium members. If you're a paid member, we do a special tournament. We do a special Zoom just for the folks that are paying members. Some serious bragging rights on the line there. Thursdays, we're going to be streaming every single Thursday night on twitch.tv/poker. So one of the Wrecking Crew members is going to be out there. So join the Twitch thing, enter the chat, have a lot of fun with us out there. But every single night, there's a free online home game. We started that during social distancing. The amazing John Somsky set that up. So now we've got a free tournament every single night. Plus now there's a free cash game every single night. You bust out, go play the cash game. It's all free money, super fun. And 4 or 5 days a week, we're releasing new videos. So there's always something cool going on there. Some of that stuff's public. Some of it's just for our free members. Some of it's just for our paid members, but all the information is out there. So I just wanted to give you a high-level overview on what's going on there. So with that, I'll open it up. Is there anything going on, guys, that's happened recently that we need to make sure that our people know about? We're transitioning from this new. Now I've got them all scared because we're trying to narrow this down. Now they're all scared. Anything that's kind of happened recently? I know obviously we got the home game stuff.
Well, the invitational, the Open Invitational was such a blast this month. We had Matt Matros and Ryan LaPlante both come, and they spent the bulk of the time there just talking to each other about poker strategy and like game selection and what they thought about while they were playing hands. And like all the premium members that wanted to be there were in the chat. We were all just asking them questions about poker strategy and stuff. I couldn't believe that. So I'm looking forward to that each and every month.
That was insane.
It was like a seminar from Ryan, wasn't it?
Oh my God.
Like a seminar. It was like amazing.
We asked him to stop by. We thought he'd give us 15, 20 minutes. Hour and a half later, he's done coaching us all.
And then he also offered everyone in the room a free month at his training site. Like, I just can't believe the support we've gotten from some of these Learning with partners and some of these other premier sites out there and these poker pros that are coming to lend their voice to our group. It's phenomenal.
They want to be part of our community, man. They love community. It's where it's at.
They know, they see how much we love it. They see how much we love poker.
Yeah. Jason Su is still in the forums. You know, we had him on as a guest, and he's still in the forums putting comments out there. So, well, anything else before we get to the home games? Anything else, guys, that people need to know about? All right, Mr. Somsky, well, how about you, man? You got something to say.
Oh, of course I do. So between August 17th and August 23rd, here are the nightly series winners. We have JBox71, John Bachhuber. That's his first. Bachhuber. His first No Limits nightly series win.
Nice.
Shamu Star 27140, Roger Lamp. Got his second nightly series.
Nice, Roger. He just, I'm playing in the home game right now. Don't tell anybody. And he just mentioned that he enjoyed the last episode of the podcast. So thanks, Roger.
Nice. You can skip the next one, John.
Oh, yeah. No one needs to know that Bluff Sterini, Jim Reed, got his an amazing fifth No Limit series win, or nightly series win.
I got real lucky in that one.
And then website Mark Prashan got his third nightly series win.
Website Mark.
Flying Bricks, Sarah Hansen got her fourth nightly series win.
Bricks is on a roll.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting a couple of weeks ago, we had it was everyone's first or second win. And tonight we're getting a lot of third and fourth wins. It's nice. Pretty amazing. Then Mr. DZZZ 18 Richard Dietz got his first Nightly Series victory, and
Nice.
John Lutzy got his, whose real name is also John Lutzy, got his second Nightly Series victory.
I was at that final table. I was busted out 5. John was a short stack, and he just went on a run, man. Whew.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a very solid player.
Yes.
He's on a roll, and great to see Rich getting his that's his first bronze pin. Then he's gonna have a bronze pin in the mail one of these
Mr.
days soon.
Diz.
Good for
Except
you,
he's-
Rich.
Except he's a Dodgers fan, but we'll let that go.
Yeah, he likes the Raiders too. Him and Binkley are both Raiders fans, and we're making it work. But we get by.
Well, good stuff, Mr. Somsky, as always. Anything else, guys, for the good of the order? All right, see some
Just
head
learning with
shaking.
partners second and fourth Wednesday of every month.
All right, yeah, let's do it, guys. Get out there. It's too good to pass up. It really is. All right, guys. Well, like with that, go to rec.poker, check everything out. If you have any questions, like if you heard stuff, we just kind of fire hosed it out there, get a hold of me. I'm accessible. I'm available. Steve at rec.poker. Sign up for the newsletter. Thank you, Running Aces, Casino, Racetrack, and Hotel. Thank you, Website Amp, which is owned by the great Mark Pershawn. Give him your business, you guys. He's amazing. He's on his 3rd website that he's designing for me, and I'm like, I can't get enough of this dude. If you need a website Amp, seriously, go check him out. Get a hold of him if you have any trouble finding him. Learn Pro Pokers also. Thanks to our guests, I'm Matt Hunt, phenomenal, great stuff. And thanks to our panel, of course, Andrew Feist, Jim Reed, Rob Washam, John Somsky, and Chris Jones. And we'll chat with you next time.